So we talked about Google, we talked about Meta, we did a overview of the platforms itself in each of their campaign types, and now I want to dive into some of the KPIs and terminology that we utilize in paid media. Some of these you might be familiar with, some might be a bit new, but I'll dive into basically what each term means, the use case that we have for it at Reply, and the overall importance of it in terms of optimizations we make on the platform that it's related to as well. So this will be an overview of the main terms that we review. I'll probably use some other terminology when I'm talking about these terms, but wanted to branch it out and show essentially the 8 main terms that we'll be defining in reviewing in the deep dive today. Again, some of these you're probably familiar with, some you might be seeing for the first time, but we'll review each one and go into detail about why each one is important to paid media in general. So we're going to begin with one most of you have probably heard of in general and also related to paid media. That's conversion rate. Conversion rate is defined by the % of users who complete any sort of desired or tracked action on a landing page. So for us, that's form submissions or phone calls. Whenever someone submits their information to the CRM, that'll be tracked as a conversion. That'll increase the conversion rate. Same thing with a phone call. Any phone calls that last longer than 90 seconds on Google will be tracked as a conversion as well, and that will boost conversion rate too. The main value of conversion rate is ultimately it drives the profit. It helps measure overall marketing effectiveness. We could have all the users in the world visiting our landing page, but if none of them convert, then they really don't matter. And it also helps us improve user experience. Conversion rate tells us what changes we may need to make to the landing page or what type of audience we need to target. If we're seeing a lot of clicks and a lot of visitors, but not a lot of conversions, usually that's an indication that we need to change the copy on the landing page. We might need to target a new audience. We might need to change up the keyword structure. So it gives us a lot of insights in terms of user experience as a whole. Touch on this already, but in terms of optimizing ad campaigns, gives us a lot of insights there, helps us make those data-driven landing page decisions, and also determine the effectiveness of keywords. Ultimately, keywords are graded on how well they convert, not how many clicks they receive. So keywords that are obviously converting at a higher rate, we'd like to push more budget in. Keywords that are converting at a lower rate, we'd like to pause those or redirect the budget elsewhere where we're seeing a bit more of an impact. It's definitely among the most important metrics and what we use to optimize Google campaigns in general. It shapes campaign structure. The KPI we have set is 5%. That's above the multifamily industry average, and it's also well above the Google advertising average as well in general. Any questions on conversion rate?
You can go back to the pictures or some examples. So talking about conversions right here, in some cases, you might be asked to take over accounts that are currently existing. Just curious, are there any other types of conversions that we might see out there that are being promoted by either other partners or being measured by customer of ours they may be looking into that we don't necessarily ignore, but they're not our primary conversion metric?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point because anything can be tracked as a conversion, which means anything can influence conversion rate. So ultimately, anytime we create any sort of tracked action or desired action on a landing page, that can be marked as a conversion inside of our ad account. So let's say we wanted to track the users that are visiting a specific web page. We can mark that as a conversion. So anytime someone visits the web page, that'll be marked as a conversion, and that'll be a conversion action that's uploaded into Google Ads. That will increase conversion rate greatly if the number of users visiting that web page is obviously much larger than users submitting a form submission or a phone call. Some other actions we've seen from accounts that utilize their website, their main property website as the landing page, schedule a tour, any sort of schedule tour clicks. When someone goes to click schedule a tour, the lease now button clicks on your property website. We've had communities track that before as well. So it really, conversion rate requires a little bit more of a deep dive before you just look and see this conversion rate's much higher than ours. It's relative to what type of actions you're tracking. These specific actions that we track are of the highest intent. That means we've had some sort of direct contact with the leasing office through a phone call, or we've had the user submit their information, which increases the qualifications of the user as well. Any more questions on conversion rate? So we'll jump next into cost per conversion. Again, really important metric and one that we utilize to optimize our campaigns in general, both on Google and on Meta as well. So it's the average cost for each conversion tracked in the account. So it's directly related to how many conversions we're gaining from the budget that we currently have allocated. In general, reflects the overall efficiency of an account and also reflects the efficiency of a campaign as well. We might be gaining a large amount of conversions, but ultimately if the cost that we're spending and the amount of money that we're spending per conversion is too high, then it might not even be worth it to target those keywords or to push more money into that campaign. Helps us optimize the resource allocation. Like I just mentioned, there might be campaigns that have a high conversion rate, but have a really high cost per conversion as well. And it might make more sense to reallocate certain resources in that campaign to other campaigns that we have running in the Google ad account. And then it does maximize ROI as well. Ultimately, we want to make sure we're staying below our KPI of $100 to maximize the ROI in terms of what we're spending per conversion. It does very similar things for us in the paid media team that conversion rate does. Helps us optimize the ad groups and the keywords. We're able to look at a granular level of how each ad group is converting and at what cost, and keywords as well. Helps us reevaluate location targeting for better performance as well. Some locations might require a higher budget, and then therefore the cost per conversion is going to be much higher. We're able to exclude certain locations based on the cost per conversion, or double down on certain locations as well based on what we're seeing from this metric. Definitely the most important metric for ROI ultimately, and helps us just drive that substantial change to the ad account, similar to what conversion rate does as well. Any questions on this metric? Yeah.
So for you, if we reach out to you and say, hey, our cost per conversion for this property last month was $300.
Mm-hmm.
What is your steps that you take or process you take to identify things to bring that conversion rate lower?
Yeah, so we'll start basically at the campaign level. We'll look at the campaign performance over whatever time period we're talking about. If there's a specific campaign that had a uniquely high cost per conversion, we'll dive deeper into that campaign. If it's not, if it's kind of a general account issue where there's all three campaigns have a high cost per conversion, then we'll go deeper and look at the ad groups. There might be.
Your computer's still up?
Yeah.
I think this has like
Oh, there we go. I just got to keep clicking every once in a while. Yeah, so basically we'll start at the high level, the campaign level. We'll look at if there's a specific campaign that's responsible for the high cost per conversion. If that's not the case, then we'll dive into the ad group level. There might be a specific ad group, a set of keywords that are causing the cost per conversion to rise greatly. If there's no clear ad group, then again, we'll go into the keyword level. We'll look at each keyword individually over that time frame. And most of the time, it's usually 2 to 3 keywords that spent a large amount in that given month that didn't convert well, and those are normally responsible. So at that point, we're not going to just pause those keywords because they didn't perform in that 1 month. We'll usually shoot the time frame out 90 days. We'll look at the performance for those keywords over that 90 days. If they have continued to have diminished performance over the past 3 months, that's when we'll make a change and say, we're going to pause these keywords. They've shown a history of not converting well enough or converting at too high of a cost. And then that's leading us into pause those keywords. But we don't want to just look at that month outlook and then pause keywords based on that performance. But to wrap that up, basically we start at the highest level, the campaign level. We go all the way down to the keyword level, just to make sure we're getting as granular as possible and finding the culprit for the high cost per conversion.
What about keywords that over 90 days just have 0 conversions?
Those will be paused. And normally those will be paused way before 90 days. It's also relative to how much the keyword's spending. I should mention that. If a keyword has no conversions over 90 days, but it's spent $40 over those 90 days, we're not going to pause that keyword because it simply hasn't had enough budget allocated towards it to really get a good view on whether it works or not. Generally, we actually use our KPI as like the measurement for whether we can pause keywords or not. If a keyword spent over $100 and hasn't converted yet, generally that's when we'll pause the keyword. And that's, not even just relative to the time frame. If over 30 days we saw a keyword spent over $100, again, that's when we look back and zoom out and look at that 3-month time frame, and we would determine whether the keyword should be paused then or not. But we want to make sure all keywords get to that $100 mark before we make any sort of determination on whether they work or not. Any more questions on cost per conversion? All right, and we'll jump next into click-through rate. Again, probably a metric some of you have seen before. It's the percent of users who click or interact with your ad after seeing it. So that's through on a Google ad, if someone clicks to make a phone call, that will count as a click. If someone visits the landing page, that will count as a click as well. Really good indication of ad engagement. Reflects how well our ad copy is doing and what type of audiences we're serving our ads to. Influences quality score. Google has a quality score for every ad that gets run on their platform. There's really two main metrics and measurements they use, and that's landing page experience and expected click-through rate. So the actual click-through rate of the account is really important in terms of whether our ads are served or not. We use click-through rate to optimize our ad copy. If click-through rate's below our KPI, it's an indication we need to refresh the verbiage or completely change what type of ad copy we're serving. Helps us refine the targeting as well. And then also leverage the ad extensions. If we see click-through rate a bit below our KPI, we can implement certain ad extensions, such as the image ad extensions that I talked about, which will give a visual element to the search ads. So click-through rate's really useful in terms of that first initial look at the ad from the user. Impacts ad serving, like I talked about, and helps us make adjustments just to enhance the website traffic quality as well. And overall, to make changes to the ad copy to make sure the verbiage we're serving to the qualified users is correct and optimized as well. And that KPI is set at 5% as well. All of our KPIs that we have set much higher than the multifamily average and much higher than the Google average as well.
Would you mind
Yeah.
describing what the ad extensions are?
Yeah, sure. So ad extensions are basically additional placements you can place on your search ads. So the main ones we use are image extensions, call extensions, and location extensions. The image extensions add an image next to your search ad, provide a visual element that isn't currently active on the search ad. Call extensions is allowing the user to make a call right from the search ad they see it. If you didn't have a call extension in place, they'd have to click on the landing page and then see the phone number at the top of the landing page and then dial it themselves. This case, there's a button that comes available on the search ad where they can click. If they're on the mobile device, it'll alert them to make the call to that leasing office. And then location extensions tie your Google business profile to the search ad. So it'll provide insight as to where your property is located, and it kind of ties organic and paid together. Allows for the user to click on the location and then get a better read on Google Maps to see where exactly the property is located as well. Does that answer that question? Awesome. Any more questions on click-through rate? So next we'll examine cost per click. So underrated metric that we use on the paid media team, it's the amount paid each time someone clicks on the ad. It varies greatly among accounts based on location, and it also varies based on the number of keywords we have active as well. Overall, helps us manage the budget for the ad account, helps us with performance as well, and it helps us optimize the ROI. We may have keywords that convert at a really high rate, but cost a lot to gain a user to visit the website, and that will help us reduce spend on certain keywords or pause certain ad groups and make decisions on what keywords we want to target and what locations we want to target as well. It does really help us make significant changes across the account simply because, like I mentioned, there may be keywords that at face value convert very well, but if they cost $6, $7, $8 per click, that's going to drive cost up. And if we're not okay with using a majority of our budget on those keywords, we're going to have to pause those to avoid spending that much. Normally, we see cost per click rise among really popular keywords, apartments in Atlanta, those really broad keywords that a lot of properties are targeting. But there are certain cases where really specific locations and keyword specific targets also rise. So it's all dependent on the account itself and dependent on the area in general as well. Any questions on cost per click? So next to impressions, just to review impressions quickly, basically just gives us an indication about ad visibility in general. So anytime an ad is served on a user's screen, whether that be mobile device, computer, if they're on Meta, if they're on Google, anytime a user sees the ad, that's going to count as an impression, regardless of the interaction that we have with the ad itself. Helps us review initial brand exposure, so gives us an indication about how many times our ad's being served and how many users are viewing our ad. Real foundation for engagement overall. It's really beneficial for campaigns that are not focused on leads. So we're talking about the display campaigns, the demand gen campaigns, the traffic campaigns for Meta, any campaign that isn't optimized for leads. We like to use impressions as a general measure of how successful the campaign is, how many users are seeing our ad, especially if we're trying to increase brand awareness for a new development or a property that recently changed their name. It also is a really good indication of ad serving issues. There's been times where impressions have been uniquely low on a given month, and then we'll look into that campaign and we'll see that Google's marked a certain ad incorrectly with a certain error, which has prevented the ad from serving, and then we have to get in contact with Google. So it is uniquely a really good measurement of ad serving issues, and it helps us with those as well. And again, it's a really good measurement of success of awareness campaigns, so we can see how many users have viewed the ad in general. It's important to specific campaigns or properties. It's not important to all. I don't like to use impressions as a measure of success on lead generation campaigns. Any sort of campaigns focused on optimizing for leads, it doesn't make a ton of sense to focus on how many users see the ad. We would prefer to focus on how many users have converted in the ad. And so it doesn't normally drive substantial changes to the account, only substantial changes to the campaign that it's running, whether that be a traffic or display campaign that's focused on optimizing for clicks in general. Any questions on impressions? And related to impressions, impression share, this is a bit of a more granular metric that we utilize more specifically in Google Ads. The definition is basically the amount of time or the percent of the time your ad serves when it has the potential to be served. It's a really good indication of visibility, measure of market share, and competitor insights as well. If you had a 50% impression share, they're basically saying Google's telling us for every 2 impressions that you could have gotten, you've received 1, and you can, obviously, if it was 200 impressions, you received 100 impressions. So you served your ad to 50% of your potential impressions. There can be a number of reasons why your impression share isn't high. It can be competition. Google's not going to serve your ad 100% of the time if there's 20 other competitors. Depending on what you have set for bids on certain keywords, that can influence impression share. It helps determine our strongest market. We may have varying impression shares across different keywords or different ad groups. Gives us an indication about where our ads are serving best and most often. Helps us refine the location targets as well, and helps gauge competitive ranking. We do have the ability to look at impression share of a couple other competitors that are in the general landscape of the same audience that we're targeting. And then we can measure our impression share relative to them as well. So it helps us gauge, kind of what type of competitors are in the area as well, and whether they're competing for the same keywords as us. Keyword spend and structure matters in impression share. Again, since impression share varies greatly on the keywords that you're targeting, and also how much you're spending on those keywords, You have to dive a little bit deeper than just looking at the metric at face value. And a high share does not equal high ROI either. You could have 100% impression share on keywords that don't convert. And so impression share would be 100%, but your conversion rate would be 0%. So it's not correlated directly to conversion rate or the amount of conversions you're receiving. And cost per click influences as well. If you don't have a high budget and you're trying to target really high cost per click keywords, that's a recipe for a really low impression share because you simply don't have the budget to bid up and raise your impression share for those sets of keywords. Any questions on that?
Do you have a benchmark for overall campaign impression share?
We don't have a benchmark. I think it's because it varies way too much between each account. An account that you would maybe define as in the middle of nowhere is going to have a higher impression share likely than an account in the middle of Atlanta. And that's not core. I don't think it's fair to judge accounts on that because the account that might be, more in the outskirts that has a really high impression share compared to the Atlanta apartment complex. That Atlanta apartment complex might have a 10% impression share, but it's got 100 more leads than the other account. So it's really campaign specific and account specific. So that's why we really don't have a metric to measure or a benchmark to measure impression share. And I think it's more of just a case by case basis. We can review how each campaign and keyword is performing in terms of impression share, but I wouldn't use it as like a measurable metric where we're using it as a KPI and making decisions based on that.
Do you ever look at that and make changes because the impression share is 10% or something?
Very rarely, I would say. Simply because when we switch to maximize conversions, like I mentioned earlier, the ultimate goal is to get to a maximized conversions bid strategy where we're utilizing Google's back-end conversion data to optimize our campaigns. They're going to bid on keywords and they're going to serve our ads to the highest converting users based on the data they're seeing. That normally lowers impression share pretty greatly because we're not bidding equally across all keywords anymore. Instead, we're focused on 3 or 4 of the main keywords in each ad group. And so you'll see impression share drop since we're not spreading the budget as thin. So that's where impression share does have its importance. Again, it is helpful to gauge competitive ranking. We can kind of view the performance of other competitors in the area, but I wouldn't use it in general to optimize campaigns. Again, it's more of a case-by-case basis. Any more questions on impression share? All right, next we'll look at geo-targeting. Last metric we'll review. Basically, this helps the paid media team on Google and more specifically on Google and not necessarily on Meta, but it helps us customize the ads to be shown to users in specific geographical locations. When we first launch accounts on Google, we will launch it targeting the city or the town the community is located in. And then we'll also create a 15-mile radius around the community as well. And those will be the 2 main areas that we start each account with in terms of targeting. Now, it doesn't just target users in that area. It also targets users with interest in that area. So you could have someone living 20 miles outside the radius that is interested in moving in, Atlanta, Lawrenceville, whatever town or city you'd like to use, and they will be served the ad. So it's not just the immediate users in that area. Geo-targeting is more used deeper into the account life, where we can review different locations' performance. We can implement those locations as specific location targets, essentially doubling down on certain locations. We can use on-site feedback, where maybe we're seeing a lot of leases come from 2 specific towns and we're seeing really high performance there. We can implement those locations on the digital ad side so we can make sure the budget's being pushed to those towns and cities as well. Helps us increase the advertising in converting areas, limit the advertising in struggling areas. So when we look at those location specific performances, if we see a lot of budget being spent in one town or city that's not converting, we can exclude that area to make sure our ads don't serve there anymore. And it also helps to target local workplaces in schools. We've had inquiries about trying to target certain workplaces in the area that, to target those employers. For student-focused communities, any universities in the area, if we're trying to target those students, we can create a 1-mile radius around the school itself. Make sure the ads are serving to those students that are on campus that may be looking to move off campus as well. So really important targeting capability that we have in Google, helps us with flexibility on each campaign. I would say it's best used for student properties, targeting the students that are currently at the school, that frequent the school for class and such. And the on-site feedback that we receive from you guys is definitely paramount, letting us know what type of metrics you're seeing, what type of locations are performing really well on your end in terms of the leases you're seeing, increased traffic from certain areas. We like to know all that information so then we can also test that out on the digital side, see if we see a mirroring effect from what the on-site team is receiving as well. Any questions on geo-targeting?
If you were targeting Lawrenceville, for instance, and there was an employer in Bowling Green, Kentucky or something that was moving people over, and people were in Bowling Green searching for apartments in Lawrenceville, what would they see?
So we would basically get the address of the workplace in Bowling Green. We'd set up a radius around that workplace. It would indicate to Google that we'd like to serve ads to anyone who frequents that area, who has interest in that area. So anyone who's working there, who's consistently going to work in that area, they would be served the ad. If someone searches for apartments in Lawrenceville and they're in Bowling Green, they'll be served that ad. Because
if we didn't set up anything, they just wouldn't see the ad, right?
Correct. So that's the real important of geo-targeting, make sure that we're staying on top of that. If that case does appear, making sure we can jump on that quickly so we can target the workers that are currently looking to move to Lawrenceville, so that if they do make that search, since we may be one of the only properties that's aware that that's occurring, we can be the only competitor that's looking to target those users, and then we'll be the first apartment community that they see.
Are we excluding locations within the U.S. besides the radius or the state?
In some accounts, yes. Basically, we'll look at location performance, and if the location performance on certain areas is poor in terms of conversions, we'll exclude those areas pretty much automatically. So similar to a keyword, if a keyword's spending a lot and not converting, we'll pause the keyword. If a location's spending a lot and not converting, we'll pause that as well. We can exclude certain locations as well. In terms of towns or cities, if we don't see a strong performance from those, and that's, again, information that we can get from the on-site team, then we can pause, we can exclude those as well. Any more questions on geo-targeting?